Hey there, Raelan here. So, as you can probably imagine, I spend a fair amount of time learning about and thinking about chronic fatigue syndrome, or ME/CFS. Because not only did I have it myself for about a decade, I also grew up with it because my mother had it. And then since recovering, I spent lots of time talking to other people who have this illness or who have had it and have since recovered. And I still read a lot of books and listen to podcasts and watch videos and so forth. And lately, it feels like I've had a consistent message smacking me in the face when it comes to chronic illness recovery. And I talked about this in a recent newsletter of mine. I send out a weekly newsletter for anyone who's interested. You can sign up in the video description. And I got such a good response from it that I thought I would talk about it here as well. So when we first become unwell, understandably, I think many of us spend a lot of time thinking about what triggered it, what made us unwell, and then what diagnosis did we receive, and what does that mean? Or what diagnosis are we waiting to receive? Or did we get multiple diagnoses, and what does that mean? Because whether we like it or not, and I'm guessing not, many of us actually get many diagnoses attached to us. Things like post-viral fatigue, chronic fatigue syndrome, myalgic encephalomyelitis, postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, chronic Lyme disease, long COVID, adrenal fatigue, gluten intolerance, multiple chemical sensitivities, and on it goes. And during my recent interview with Dan Neuffer, he's the author of CFS Unraveled and the creator of the ANS Rewire program. I'll link the interview above if you want to check it out. He said something that really stuck with me. And I quote, "It's kind of unlikely that any one person would have so many things wrong with them." Dan's point, and now I'm paraphrasing, is that there is a laundry list of chronic health conditions with varying labels that are all expressions of the same thing, a dysfunction in the healing process in our body. And I got smacked in the face with this again recently while watching a video on YouTube from the NIH conference, or National Institute of Health, that someone in my Facebook group actually recommended for me. Thank you, Cameron. And it was from Dr. Robert Naviaux, and he was talking about how we accelerate ME/CFS research and recovery. Amen to that. And if you happen to be looking for some extra support and are interested in joining my ME/CFS Facebook recovery group, I'll link that in the video description as well. So in this talk, what Dr. Naviaux was talking about was the shared biology of chronic disease. It was a very informative talk, but it was about as exhilarating as you would expect a talk at a medical conference to be. Picture slide after slide after slide, packed full of information, so many words, so many arrows and flowcharts and diagrams that it's really just a lot to take in. So one of the things I'm going to do in this video is pull out some of the key concepts from that talk from Dr. Naviaux. And incidentally, Dr. Naviaux, I have nothing but love for you and your slides. Thank you for the work that you are doing. We very much need this research and this information to get out there. Personally, I think that we should have fun while learning. If we have to learn stuff anyways, why not have fun while doing it? And incidentally, for a small blip in my life, I was actually a teacher, and I did my best to make every single class super fun. I was teaching middle schoolers, and I would put Justin Bieber on the slides, and I would throw out lollipops in class to people who got questions right, kind of all Michelle Pfeiffer style and Dangerous Minds, or maybe more like Oprah, like, you get a lollipop, you get a lollipop. And the principal audited my class one day, and this was a very conservative, fancy private school in a fairly conservative country. I was in Malaysia, and she was not so impressed. But the students seemed to like me, and their grades were good, so I stand by. But anyways, where was I? Maybe this is why she didn't like my teaching style. Focus, Raelan. One lollipop for anyone who can tell me what the topic was that I was just talking about. That's right, the shared biology of chronic disease. You get a lollipop, but maybe don't eat it because it's really just sugar and chemicals, and I probably wasn't doing those students any favors. So what Dr. Naviaux dives into in this talk is the healing cycle model of pathogenesis and the treatment of chronic disease. And one of the main things that he talked about in this NIH conference was that the way we look at healing with acute illness and chronic illness cannot be the same. However, in mainstream medicine, they are often treated the same. But the difference with chronic illness versus acute illness is that by addressing the trigger of that illness, you're not going to heal unless that healing mechanism, that healing cycle is addressed. So his example was, insulin doesn't cure diabetes. And when we look at groups of people with chronic illness, like let's say We have a group of people that was exposed to some chemicals or some mold. Some of them get sick and don't recover. Others, their bodies are able to manage it and they can go on fine. Or we have people that come down with viruses, Epstein-Barr virus, or various flus, or COVID, and some people are able to recover in a reasonable amount of time, and other people are plagued with this for weeks or months or years. So what's happening? What's happening? Why some people can recover and some people can't? Where we need to focus, according to both Dan Neuffer and Dr. Robert Naviaux, is looking at the healing cycle. Something is happening with chronic illness. There is a root pathology, if you will. It is one thing that is causing the problem, and it is a breakdown in that healing process in our body. So the cause of disease persistence is a biological failure of the normal healing cycle. It's the healing cycle that's causing the issues. Dan explained that from his perspective and his research and his experience, it's a breakdown in the autonomic nervous system. And this is what we need to address if we want to get better. And Dr. Naviaux, as I understood it, was saying something similar, that unblocking these molecular steps in the healing process is what's going to lead to healing. So what this means is that there are many silos of chronic illness that are connected by a root pathology. And we can know absolutely everything there is to know about each one of those silos, and it's not going to help us recover. It's not going to get us anywhere. What they all share, what all those individual chronic conditions share, what those people share, is an inability to heal from those conditions. So for one lollipop, what does this mean? What does this mean for us who are facing chronic illness? You got it. Whether we have a diagnosis of ME or CFS or ME-CFS or ABCDEFGLMNOP, that label isn't as important as we might think. Good job. Here's your lollipop. And also, to build on that, what triggered that condition might not be as important as we think. So whether it was, chemical exposure or viral exposure or stress on the body or the mind, just addressing that one piece probably isn't going to get us where we're trying to go. And this is great news, because instead of us having a zillion different things in our body that are, broken or malfunctioning, it's just one core thing that we need to address, which is a lot more tackleable. When I first became unwell, I was incredibly sick and I got a whole bunch of different diagnoses like many other people do, and we did tackle them individually. We had a certain protocol to deal with the hormonal imbalance, to deal with the adrenal fatigue, to deal with the chronic Lyme disease, to deal with the viral infections and so forth. And that never really got me very far. What finally got me past this was when I took on an approach to healing that was supporting my body as a whole and just supporting its ability to heal. And that's what finally got me fully recovered. Because according to Dr. Naviaux, chronic illness is a perfect storm of a whole bunch of different factors actually in our life. So even though we might think it's just that one thing, that chemical exposure or that whatever it was, it's actually a lot of different things that came together all at once to block that healing cycle, whether it be air pollution or poor nutrition, over-exercising, too much stress, viral exposure, chemical exposure, and so forth. And Dr. Naviaux says it's this persistent cell danger response, or CDR, that results from this that creates the block in healing. So there's a ton of information in this NIH talk, and if you are the kind of person that really likes to get into the details of things, I encourage you to check it out. Dr. Naviaux dives into things like mitochondria and their developmental forms, and more on the cell danger response and something called cellulogenesis and retrograde paths and ADP and ATP and UTP and UDF. It's way more sciencey stuff than I am at all capable of getting into right here. And if you were just thinking, yes, you are correct, I don't think I want to get my scientific information from someone who says things like sciencey, then you get a lollipop. Essentially, though, there are 3 essential takeaways from all of this. And the first is that when it comes to chronic illness, healing is not just about removing causal agents. It's about adding things in that will promote the healing cycle in your body. And the second is that ME-CFS is a response to a problem. It has many causes. It is stress-related energy reallocation. And then the third thing that I take away from all of this is that the label that you attach to your condition might not be as important as you think, as might not be the things that triggered that condition in the first place. And thankfully, these days, there is more and more information available about how to support your body's own ability to heal and to support that healing cycle. And if you're looking for more information on this topic, these would be my top 3 book recommendations. The first is called Undo It: How Simple Lifestyle Changes Can Reverse Most Chronic Diseases. It's by Anne Ornish and Dr. Dean Ornish. And I've actually done a video summarizing the book and highlighting the key points. I'll link it up here somewhere if you want to check it out. Overall, I just found it packed full of easily digestible information and usable and easy to implement strategies to help support your body and get yourself back to health. Another excellent book that I would recommend is called Younger Next Year: Live Fit, Strong, and Sexy Until You're 80 and Beyond. It's by Chris Crowley and Dr. Henry S. Lodge. When I read this book, I devoured it, and I loved it so much that I bought copies for both my husband and my dad, because I just felt like this was essential information for people to have who wanted to be healthy and to know how to support their bodies and take care of their bodies. And the people that I love the most, I felt like they needed to have this information. I don't know if they ever read it, but I felt better just sending it out to them. And let me know if you'd like me to do a video summary on this book, because I never really know if these book summary videos are helpful. So leave a comment in the video description if you think that would be helpful, and I'm happy to do a video on it. And the number 1 book that I would recommend for people who are recovering from ME/CFS is my book, Finding Freedom: Escaping from the Prison of Chronic Fatigue Syndrome. And the reason I recommend this so highly is not just because it's my book, but because I put hundreds of hours into writing this book and working to create the book that I wish that I had when I first became sick. It is a prescriptive memoir. So the first half of the book is sharing my story of becoming unwell and what that was like living with chronic illness. And then the second part of the book lays out step by step everything that worked for me to support my body and finally get back to full health. So thanks for watching. And if you or someone you care about is currently facing chronic illness, hang in there. People all over the place are fully recovering from conditions that you just would think there is no coming back from this, but people do. So keep working. Good for you for watching this video and for all the other things that you do to learn and experiment and find inspiration and hope for how you can get past this. Keep going. You've got this. And here's a lollipop just for being awesome. And forget about the sugar and the chemicals. We gotta live a little. I think you should eat this one.